There we go. So it is so nice to see you all. Happy New Year, and thank you very much for joining me today. Do you know this is funny because I sort of thought, oh, I'll do something about goal setting, thinking that maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 people might sign up. And I think like 294 people have signed up in the end, of which some are here today, some are tuning in later. But it was absolutely amazing to see that so many people are interested in talking about goals and in thinking about their goals for this year. And also, it kind of also underlined that this is actually not necessarily an easy topic all the time. It's something that it's got quite a lot of complexity to it as well. So we're gonna dive right in, but yeah, I'm really excited to be talking to you about this because this is a topic that I really enjoy talking about, and I think it's a topic that for some people can sort of make their eyes glaze over a little bit. That very often, if you've in your kind of corporate work or in the courses you've done, it might well have been a topic that you've spoken about before. But the fact that you're here today suggests to me that probably there's more things that you are keen to learn about it or keen to be thinking about it. So in general, I think it's so important to allow ourselves to dream and to set goals, especially at the start of a year. It's a wonderful time to sit back and take stock of last year and think about what we want to do in this next year. And the point of having goals is not really about achieving them and therefore being happier than we are right now. That's not the end goal. It's much more about the fact that in working towards a goal, we help ourselves evolve into kind of a better version of ourselves than we currently are. It allows us to bloom, it allows us to develop skills, and it allows us to do things that we maybe think right now aren't possible. So setting and achieving your goals is great for that general self-confidence, if nothing else. And before we start, a couple of disclaimers. I want to say that this workshop, I hope, will make you feel positive and energized about what's going ahead. What I really don't want it to do is for you to feel down on yourself and think, oh God, I'm rubbish at sticking to my goals. I set them every year and I never stick to them. And that doesn't matter. That your past attempts and whether or not they worked or didn't, that has nothing to do with today. This is all about this point in time and going forward. And also, the other thing I want to really kind of stress is that your goals are not related to anybody else's on this call. There's what now, 120 of you or so on. Everybody has different personal circumstances. This last year, I have had an infant. The amount of goals I have achieved is literally like keeping my baby alive and getting up and having a shower each morning. Like that has been sort of my goals for this year. There might be people who have 30 minutes in a whole week to work on their goals. There might be someone else who has 4 hours a day. There might be someone who has a huge goal. There might be someone who has something very small or right at the beginning. It doesn't matter. This is about you and it's about what you want and what you need and working on your own ideas for it, okay? So there's 2 reasons I think it's really useful to set goals. And the first one is that it helps give your brain a direction, because our brain is kind of like a toddler. And if we don't manage it, it just goes off all over the place. And you might have experienced this when you're doing your practice sessions. If you plan what it is that you're going to practice, then the chances are you have a really good focused practice session. Whereas if you just sit down at your harp and you don't really have a plan and you haven't really got your stuff prepared, it can be a little bit chaotic. And goals are very much like that. It's about just getting our brain focused on an activity rather than kind of haphazardly, throwing stuff out into the void and seeing what sticks. So it's about just getting kind of a focus and a direction for the year ahead. And secondly, one of the things that's interesting about setting goals is it also brings up a lot of the mental baggage and blockages that we have. One of the first things that often you find when you set a goal is that instantly your brain's like, nope, you can't do that. Nope, you're going to fail at that. No, no chance, no chance. You didn't do that last year and you said you were going to. And so one of the things that's really important about us keeping setting goals is getting rid of those mental blockages and allowing us to really know that even though something might seem at this point in time like it's unachievable, if you set it up with the proper kind of systems in place, then it should be absolutely achievable and you should hopefully be able to get way beyond what you currently think you are capable of. But that process of the negative thinking coming up, that is very likely to happen for lots of people today, and that is a normal part of the process. So don't worry if already you're thinking, oh God, I don't know what she's going to make me do. Okay. And ultimately, whatever happens this year, whether you set goals or whether you don't, you're going to get some sort of results. The question is whether you're going to get the results that you want or not, whether you're going to get the ones that you've deliberately worked towards or whether you're going to get a whole bunch of other ones. So today, what we're going to go through is we're going to go through my process for setting goals and then for making a plan to achieve them. And I hope it's something that maybe it might be a slightly different way of thinking about it for you. It might be a much more kind of actionable way than just, there's a lot of, you might have heard of kind of SMART goals before, and we will talk about SMART goals, but we'll talk about why that alone is not really enough to actually get to be where you want to be. So the first thing we're going to think about and talk about a little bit is, do you even have dreams or goals in your mind right now? Do you allow yourself to have them? Or are you somebody who's actually just always so busy that you're constantly kind of firefighting and just having to deal with all the little things as they come up, and you never really have time to think about the big picture of what it is that's going on in your life? Because that happens a lot. I've got a lot of often I meet students who, like, they're literally kind of just going from one thing to the next, and they're not really thinking in a big way about what they want to be doing with their harping or with their music, or if it's students in the university that I'm teaching, they might not have a kind of bigger goal in mind about what they're doing. And so I just want to encourage you that the dreaming about what you might want to do, that's a really good thing. That's a really positive thing. But you might find that even dreaming about a goal again kind of brings up negativity for you if it's something that you're not used to allowing yourself to do. So again, just think about this is all coming from a place of positivity today. Okay, we only want to think about things being positive. So in order to have the mechanics of this all, what we're going to do first of all is I want you to think for about 10 minutes. I want you to dream about absolutely everything that you might want to do this year. And that could be, it could be a harp related goal. It could be a more general music related goal. It might be nothing to do with music or harp. It might just be a kind of bigger life thing. So I want you to grab one of your pieces of paper, and for about 10 minutes, and we're going to pause the Zoom, what I just want you to do is make a big list of everything that comes into your mind about things that you want to do and that you want to achieve this year in terms of big picture questions. Okay, so try and think of like really big things. This is not a sort of thing of like, I want to make a roast chicken for dinner tonight. This is sort of longer term thinking about through the strategy. If somebody said to me, Ailey, what is it that you want to do with your life this year? It's kind of thinking that sort of thing. So take that piece of paper, write down anything that comes into your head. There's no limit to how long this list can be, as many things as you want, as few things as you want, just accomplishment that you want, results that you want, things that you want to do, anything, write it down. And it, it might be that some random little to-dos come in there, that's fine, but just for that 10 minutes, we're going to write. Before we do that, I want to sort of say that people can sometimes find this really hard to do. If you're someone who, again, gets nervous about putting yourself out there or about having these goals, you might find this quite difficult to do. But in that case, kind of think about it in this way. If I didn't think I was going to fail, what would I want to do? Okay, reframe it. Don't sort of instantly think, well, I really want to do this thing, but I'm certain I won't stick to the practice sessions or everything. Really think about it. If I knew there was absolutely no way that I could fail at this goal, what is it that I would want to do? And I also don't want you to worry at all about how you're going to do it. I only want you to think about the final result. What is it that you want? We'll talk about the how in a little bit, okay? So take that 10 minutes or so. I'll just pause the recording and put myself on mute. If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. But I will see you back it's now 16:14. I will see you back at 16:24. Okay, so we've got some amazing examples in the chat that people have shared with us. Thank you very much, everyone who has shared. So what I want you to do next is on your list, you might only have a few things on your list, but you might end up, I think I've got about 18 on my list in the end, okay? So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to identify for yourself what your top 3 are. Okay, if you can only do 3 of them this year, what are those 3 going to be? And you might find as you do this, you might actually discover that a lot of them are linked to each other. So it might be that you've said something about, I want to get more confident playing in front of other people, but you've also put something about, I want to play in public 5 times, and you've also put something about wanting to make videos. So you might find that you actually can start to like lump the goals together, but think about what your top 3 are going to be. I'll just give you a minute to do that. And once you've got your top three, the next thing I want you to do is we're going to think about how to make them what's called a SMART goal. So I'm just going to share this up with you. You may well have heard about SMART goals before. I think I wrote a blog on my Heart Tips blog a while ago about this. But what a SMART goal is, a SMART goal is the SMART, something that's specific, something that's measurable, something that's achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so within the specific, it's really getting like what exactly do you want to achieve. So it's not something that's just kind of airy fairy, but you've got something very specific about it, something that's measurable. So how are you going to track the process of this goal? Achievable, is it actually realistic? Like if you're grade 1 and you've made your goal, I want to sit grade 8 this year, maybe not so realistic. So make sure that it is actually something realistic, also given the amount of time that you have. Something that's relevant. So does it, this is about business, does it align with your overall overarching goals? And something that's time bound. So if we look at some of the things that people have come up with on the chat, let me just stop sharing this for a second. Let me just choose some and we'll talk about whether or not they are SMART goals, and how to make them SMART. Okay, so Lily has put, I want to pass my grade 6. So that's great. That's a really nice, specific goal, but we can make it even more specific. So Lily, I want you to think about, when do you want to pass it? What month are we talking about that you're going to pass it? I want you to think about, what grade do you want to get in that exam? Do you want to just pass it? Are you going for a merit? Are you going for a distinction? What did you get last time? You said you did your grade 5 before. Are you trying to better your grade in that? What is it exactly that you want to do? Which exam board are you going to do? What things like that? Linda has written, get over crippling performance anxiety. Now, this is one that's come up quite a lot, I see this year. Now, one of the things about that that's really hard as a goal is that, how do you measure it? How do you measure where you are on a goal of performance anxiety? So we have to start thinking about, well, what can we do to actually make this a SMART goal? What can we do that actually makes it something that we can measure, and that makes it in a set time frame, and that makes it something that kind of, once you know that you've got to the end of your goal, you've nailed it. So that's, you can start thinking about your goals in terms of that. So for instance, if we had somebody somewhere put, get better at learning by ear. Okay, so that's a really good overarching goal, but we can make that more specific. So instead of just get better at learning by ear, we're going to say, you could make it something, this is just an example, but every month I am going to learn 2 tunes by ear, so that by the end of the year I have learned 24 tunes by ear. So you've got something that's really like, when it's done, when you've finished it, and how much work you need to do to get it to it. Another one, for instance, is I want to get better at playing faster. So again, that's a very loose quantity. What do we mean by I want to be better at playing faster? Again, you could think about, how do I make that more specific? How do I make that more measurable? So it might be, I want to be able to play my scales at 120 beats per minute, and I want to have learned 4 fast dance tunes that I can play each of them flawlessly at 130 beats per minute, something like that. But it's all about making things as specific as you possibly can. So really think about what it is within your goal that you need to do. So more specific ones that I'm seeing on this list are, for instance, someone said, create 1 video every month to share. So that's great, because that's really like, exactly what you're trying to do each month. There's memorize a tune every month. That's a good one. But then ones that are kind of maybe, oh, this is a good one. Learn how to make sample recordings in order to promote myself and obtain more gigs. But yeah, so just take a couple of minutes with those top 3 to really think about how to make them as absolutely specific as you can. I'll put up that SMART thing again. So just really focus in on making sure that you know exactly what it is that you want to do, and exactly how it is that you might track it. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of time for that. So the next thing you can think about is now what we want you to do. You've chosen 3 goals and hopefully you've made them as smart as you can, really thinking about focusing in on how you're going to measure them, when you want to get them done by. So for now, I just want you to pick one of those goals, okay? And we're going to work with that one for the rest of today. And I want you to start thinking about how you're going to start taking action on that goal. So whatever it is, ideally choose one goal that you can break down. Hopefully it's a kind of longer term goal. So maybe like a 6-month or a 9-month or a 1-year goal. Okay. And I want you to start breaking it down into smaller chunks. So what we're going to do now is start thinking about everything in 90-day measurable chunks. So within that bigger goal, whatever it is that you've chosen, I want you to start thinking about what it might be that you can start getting action on and what you can start making progress with within a 90-day measurable outcome. So, for instance, if my big goal was one of the ones that I've got on my list is that I want to record a new album this year, a new album of Christmas tunes. So I'm going to give myself the overarching deadline for that would be about the 1st of October because I need to have that done in time to then get it out. So what can I do in the next 90 days that's going to bring myself closer to that goal? What do I actually need to do? So for me, one of the things I need to do is I need to get all the arrangements written. So that could be my 90 goal that I pick, or it could be that I'm going to research studios that I want to record it at, or whatever it might be. But what I want you to do is choose within your goal. Now choose something that you can do, something that's actually measurable that you can work on for the next 90 days. Okay, so try and break down that goal into a kind of smaller step. And then once you've got that smaller step, what we're going to do is break it down even further into really all the things that it could be that will be involved with that. So again, let me give you an example. So one of the things that I am wanting to do this year is create a new course all about performance anxiety, because I know this is such a big topic for people. So what do I need to do in order to get that course done? It's been something that I've been procrastinating on for ages because guess what? It's always the same reason why you procrastinate. It's always because you want something to be really good, and then you get nervous that it's not going to be good enough, and so you procrastinate on it. So that is going to be one of my 90-day goals for this first quarter, is trying to get this. So one of the first things that I know that I need to do is I need to read up on all the current research about performance anxiety in musicians, in athletes, and anyone that's performing in a kind of high pressure environment. So really know that what else researchers have found out about it. I want to do some talking to music psychologists, speaking to them. I've got my aunt is a music psychologist, so I want to spend some time speaking with her. I need to actually then sit down and write the course content. I know that that's probably going to take me a while to do. I need to create a website for the course. I need to then start thinking about how I'm going to market it, who's it going to be for, what size of group I want to work with at the time. All these things, there's so many. If I kind of actually break it down into all the little steps that I need to do, there's probably, I don't know, 20, 30 small chunks of steps or work that I need to do. I need to read this article. I need to look up this thing. So lots and lots of small things. So it might be similar for you. It might be that you can, even if it's something as kind of not, this is meant to kind of belittle it, but as simple as learning a piece, you can break down learning that piece into, okay, I've got the first phrase, right hand, left hand, hands together. Second phrase, right hand, left hand, hands together. Kind of breaking it down onto all the phrases in it. You've got the expression, you've got the articulation, you've got the dynamics, you've got all these different layers of it that you can break it down into. So for whatever that 90-day goal now is that you have, try and break it down into as many little steps as you can, as many small, achievable, bite-sized things that you can think of that each one will just take you a tiny bit closer towards your goal. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 5 minutes just to work on that. Okay, so hopefully you're getting on okay, but I can see that some people are finding it hard to break things down a bit more. So let's go through a couple of examples of how you can really start to break down these ideas. So let's start with quite a specific one. So we'll go back to the idea of the grade 5 exam. Okay, so we're gonna the original was just pass my grade 5 exam. Now we've turned it into a SMART goal. So it's become, I want to sit my grade 5 exam in June 2024, and I want to get at least 125 out of 150 as my grade. Okay, so that's our kind of SMART goal. So then we can break down, if we think about the 90-day goal for that, that's going to be about the halfway point in that goal, just over the halfway point for that goal. So by that point, what it would be good to have done, if I want to really be in with a good chance of getting a merit in my exam, like a high merit, is you probably want to have made sure that by that point you have learnt your 3 pieces off by heart. You probably want to make sure that you've been working on your sight reading and on your oral tests. And you want to make sure that you're a good way through learning your scales. Okay, so those are kind of the next 4 big chunks of the ladder. So learning the 3 pieces, working on sight reading, looking at the scales, and I can't even remember what the 4th one I said now was. Okay, but each of those, again, we can break down further. So learning the 3 pieces off by heart. So within each of them, you've then got 3 prongs. You've got each piece, and you've got all the parts of each piece. Okay, and so it's really breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. You can't just go in one day from not knowing pieces to knowing them off by heart. You've got to think about how many steps realistically and how many days realistically that is likely to take you. And that will become a little bit more clear in the next step that we're going to do. Same with sight reading. Like, you don't just go from kind of here to here with sight reading without some kind of really tangible steps. If you did the sight reading workshop that I did a few months ago, like, we spoke about this and about how you really kind of go about progressively building your skills, building your rhythm skills, building your note identification skills, learning about the fluency of that. So it's not just a kind of, you go from there to there without steps in between. So it's really about thinking about what are those in between steps and how many times do I think I would have to practice that to get good enough to get the grade that I want. So similarly, somebody was asking about, they thought it was quite hard to break down confidence. Yeah, there's a goal of being confident while playing for an audience. And yeah, and one of the reasons that's really hard is because kind of within that SMART goal, it's not something that's measurable. How do you measure how confident you are with something? But it's an overall feeling that you're trying to increase. So they have suggested playing once a week for family or friends, definitely good, or making a video every month. Yeah, so those are definitely 2 good ideas of things that you could do. Other ideas you could think about is what plays into confidence, or how can you learn more about being confident? You can, again, read books about it. There's lots of books out there about performance anxiety, about being confident, about stage presence, all those things. There's a lot of podcasts out there. So it could be that you make time every week that you're going to listen to 2 different podcasts about performance anxiety and different strategies to help you learn to kind of control your nerves. You might want to think about, what is it that's actually manifesting when you get nervous? Why are you not feeling confident? What is it that's actually happening? Is it that your hands are starting to shake, or is it that you're getting sweaty, or you're starting to sort of get that tight chest feeling? So what is it that you're measuring that actually you want to be different at the end of it? Is it just that you want to not have that mental block of thinking, I really, really don't want to do this? Or is it that actually you really want to kind of feel in your physical self calmer? And if it's one of those things, then you can start thinking about, well, okay, how do I learn techniques that are going to help me control my breath when I start to get nervous? What can I do? What are some mindfulness exercises that I can start to incorporate into my daily practice that really start to let me feel like I'm in control of what I'm doing? You can also start to think about, is it actually like, am I actually underconfident because I'm nervous about making mistakes, because actually I'm not fully confident in the pieces that I'm playing? And if I gave them a little bit more time, or maybe I'm playing pieces that are just a little bit too far to my comfort zone, and so that's not working really well, or I need to start thinking about what things I can put into my sort of bank of successful performances, that you start to have things that you can draw on when you need to have belief in yourself. Okay, so that might help you with that one. Another one, somebody was asking, oh yes, and just journaling after each performance. That's a really great idea, to see how you're growing or rating your confidence out of 10 after every performance to make it more measurable. Yeah, that's great. So always just about thinking about what it is that you can do to kind of track those things in as many ways as you can. Bulletproof Musician, somebody suggesting a website, started to follow in that all over that subject. Yeah, exactly. So really useful for that. Another one somebody said was they find it hard to break down something like learn how to improvise. So again, that's a really good one. So again, it's about taking a big subject like improvising. Well, how do you decide when you're a good improviser or not? Okay, that's kind of the first question that you need to ask yourself. When you say I want to be better at improvising, what do you really mean by that? Do you mean that you could go on stage with a jazz band and instantly do a kind of an improv solo? Or do you mean that within a tune that you're already doing, you could put in an improvised break? Or do you mean that you could be playing at a wedding and you run out of music and for the next 20 minutes you can kind of improvise away from that? Or is it that you want to do it in a music for healing setting? You know, all of these are different potential outcomes. So the first thing is getting really specific about actually what is the outcome that you want, because you'll need to do different things for all of them. But within that, how do you get good at improvising? You get good by really understanding your scales and your modes and knowing exactly what that all means. What do the different modes mean? What does it mean if we're in the Lydian mode as opposed to the Mixolydian? What does that mean? It's about becoming very confident with time and with pulse. So I would do a lot of rhythm work. The more rhythm work you do, so doing things like setting a metronome and making sure that you're playing always exactly in time. It could be working with rhythm. Online, you can kind of download like rhythm flashcards and making sure you're very confident with that. It could be about practicing it, saying, okay, today I'm going to do an improvisation and it's all going to be using triplet rhythms, and tomorrow I'm going to do one and it's going to be all in dotted rhythms. It could be about actually the issue is that you're not so fluent between your right hand and your left hand and knowing what chord you should be playing when your right hand's doing something. So it might be actually thinking, I really need to spend time working on chord progressions. And so it's kind of, again, just breaking down what it is within that bigger goal of learn to improvise that you want to achieve, and then what are going to be smaller steps that can help you. And within that, there are so many resources out there that can help you. So it's a lot of the time, it's that what you actually hit up against is like, I don't know how to do this next thing. And that's when you can go away and you can start learning and researching, and you will find that there are lots and lots and lots of resources out there to help you. But the important thing is to make sure that you are making a plan for all of that. So learning to improvise, for example, is, again, it's just not going to happen overnight. You need to have a progressive plan that works every day for it. Okay. So on to the next part, or the final part of kind of all of this. And this is the bit that is actually the most important of all, because it's all very well and good having a goal. The question is, are you actually going to do the things that you need to do to manage to get to there? And if you're anything like me, and I'm sure you all are, you have hugely busy lives and you have so many things pulling at your time all the time. And the hardest thing in the world is to make time for your own priorities, because you have the kids yelling at you for something, and you've got your job asking you for something else. And, you know, there's so many things, and it's very, very hard to make your own goals a priority. So what I think is very important to do is start to schedule all the things that you're going to have to do. Once you've got that big list of things that you need to do, I want you to get out your calendar. First thing you need to do is within that list, put them in order of execution, of an order of how you need to do them. So for instance, like with the, I don't know, with one about playing faster, you know, you could think about the first thing I want to do is actually be able to play my simple exercises at speed, and I'm going to work them up, and then I'm going to put into practice with a piece or whatever. So put those smaller goals into an order of which you want to do them. And then once you know the order of all those things that you need to do in order to get your goal, you need to start getting your calendar out and scheduling out the entire next 90 days of when you're going to do this stuff. And that might sound like a really long time, but I promise you, if you don't put them in now, what you're going to find is that 4 weeks from now, suddenly your March is looking really, really busy and you don't have time for all the things that you said that you were going to do. Whereas by deciding right now when you're going to do them, it means that you've made that commitment to yourself already. So then when you get asked to do something, you can say, well, I'd love to do this thing, but actually I'm not going to do it at 10 o'clock on Tuesday because I've said that I'm going to work on my improvising at that time, or I can't come and meet you at Wednesday at 7:30 because that's my practice session. And with my Patreon group, I think lots of you here are in Patreon, but for instance, this month, I'm doing a thing where people can practice sort of in real time with me. And you can really see. So let's share my screen again. For the month of January, for instance, these are all my practice times. And I've decided them ahead of time. I've sat down with my diary. I've looked at exactly how much time I have each day and what time of day I can work and when the baby's likely to be sleeping. So sometimes I'm having to get up at 7:20 in the morning to do them because that was the only time of day I knew that I could actually safely fit it in. There are some days that I know there's no chance I'm going to manage something. This day I've got the Winter Heart Festival, so there's no way I'm going to manage to do something else. So that's fine. But I know that overall in that month, the commitment that I made to myself was I was going to get 25 practice sessions in. So I have decided already when those are going to be. So it means that when it comes to the 26th of January, I know that that night before I need to set my alarm clock a little bit earlier because I've got to be at my harp by 7:20 in the morning. And that's just like, it's just going to happen because it's already in my diary, because I know myself and I know that if I don't make those plans, then it suddenly gets to 8 o'clock at night and I think, oh, I haven't done that thing that I said I was going to do, but I really want to just chill out and watch TV now, and I'm not going to do it. And that's just the reality. And a lot of this is about thinking about like the cost of your goals. Like the cost is your time, and the chances are, because people are busy, like if you want to make time for the thing that you want to do, like something else will probably have to give. And it might just be that actually you need to get up 20 minutes earlier in the morning, or you don't get to watch EastEnders at 5 o'clock, or whatever it is that you might find that you've got lots of time, and that's great. I'm really jealous if you have lots of time, but you might find that there is just, if you really want to make it a priority, you need to start doing that. So yeah, I'm going to give yourself again just 5 minutes and just look even into the next couple of weeks. Think about trying to carve out all the time that you have to fit in the number of steps that you have. And this is also, the reason this is also useful is because you might start at this point in time to realize that your goal is not realistic. If, for instance, you are wanting to work towards, I don't know, your grade 8 harp exam, and you know the pieces for that are really quite long, they're pretty hefty, there's a lot of skills to learn, there's a lot of work to do overall. And you start to look at your diary and you start to realize that actually you maybe only have half an hour every few days to commit to your harp practice. You might need to start thinking, okay, this is not going to happen in the time frame that I want it to happen in this time. I need to make my time frame a little bit bigger. And it's much better that you do that now at this stage and you're realistic about that than that you kind of go off gung-ho, and then when it gets to the time when you hoped to be able to do it, actually you see your deadline whiz past you because you just weren't able to manage to do that. Okay, so again, just take a couple of minutes, look at your diary and start making some plans of when you might want to do these things. There's a really good question here from Patricia saying, but Ailey, do I also plan at the time that I'm really free and can relax? And this is such a good question. And the answer is, yeah, I try to. But so there might be others of you on this who are self-employed or who have jobs that kind of pull at you all the time, or just life. Like life has so many things going on. And because of that, I think it's really important to have boundaries and to know when you're actually finished with something. And so like if I look at the list that I've made of all the things I want to achieve this year, like it is so long and there's so many things that I want to be able to do. But I also know that the amount of time I have is really limited. Okay. So within that, if I don't prioritize, like don't just say, okay, I'm going to choose 3 and I'm going to break them down, and those are going to be the 3 that I'm going to work on, and I'm not going to think about the others. I know that they're written down on this list, so I'm not going to lose them. I can come back to them, but I'm going to finish off at least some of the goals on this list first before I think about the others. And the reason for that is because otherwise I just feel rubbish all the time, because there's just always this thing of like, you need to do this, you need to do that, they've got so many things to do, and I never feel like they ever get finished. And so that's like a horrible feeling. The second is that it's very easy for other stuff to start to sneak in and start demanding my time. And so whether that's just as simple as it being like the laundry needs to be done, or I've got students asking for more lessons, or I get like so many emails every day. So it's very easy for all those other things to start sneaking into the time that I've reserved for my goal. So by saying exactly when I'm going to work on the thing that I'm going to work on, that time, like, it sort of becomes sacred, and it means that like, no, it's okay. I'm not going to feel guilty that I'm not doing the laundry from 7:20 till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, because I know that that's my practice time. But also I know that once my practice time is done, that's it over. And that means that then hopefully at the end of the day or at weekends, I also know the blocks of times when I don't need to feel guilty about not doing stuff. And I can actually say like, no, I'm fully free on this Saturday, because I know that in the rest of the week, I'd already mapped out my time, and I always knew my Saturday was going to free, and that was going to be the time that I gave myself. So it's about being like really realistic with your own calendar, and knowing like, I think it's almost good to work out how much real free time you want to have when you don't want to feel guilty for not doing the other things, and then start to put the stuff into the time when you're thinking like, this is time for working, this is time to be okay. And so I think that's like, the reason I think this works is because there's 2 steps to it. First of all, by having this discipline to actually sit down, write down your goals, break it into all the steps that are needed, and schedule them into your calendar. That is an accomplishment in itself. Like, to actually really do that effectively will probably take you about an hour. So you've given yourself that, and that it feels really great when you look at your calendar and you're like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I know that if I do these things, I'm going to get closer towards my goal each day. So that's really great. Second of all, it shows you how doable it is. Like, again, it can show you quite quickly if something's actually a bit too big. I did that when I was working on my technical exercises book. That was one where I had to set myself a goal of, I think, June. And when I actually realized how many exercises I wanted to include and how long it was taking me typically to write each exercise and to format it and to type it into Sibelius and all of that, I realized there was no way I was going to get it done by my June deadline. So I kind of increased it to August, and that was fine, but I could kind of be realistic with the amount of time it was going to take. And then third of all, I think it's important because it starts to teach you to actually honor the commitments that you've made to yourself. Like, you know when you've said you're going to do something, and you know that if you follow through on that again, you will accomplish the goal that you want by the date that you've said that you're going to do it. And you also know that like, you are able to start monitoring your own progress. You're able to like see whether you're actually willing to keep your word to yourself of what you've said you're going to do, and out of the time that you've said you're going to set aside, and if not. And if you're not doing it, think about why you're not doing it. Is it just that actually you're really too busy, and therefore maybe you need to step back or make your goal smaller or find some other way to carve out time? Is it because you don't have the right level of support that you need? Is it that actually you're working away on your own and you really actually need to be working with a teacher every few weeks for some accountability, because otherwise you're just kind of floundering around and not sure of what you're wanting to do? Is it because you really genuinely don't know the steps that are involved, you're trying to do something with technology and you just can't figure out how on earth you get this microphone connected to your computer in the right way. And, it lets you really see what the problem is with why you're not doing the thing that you're saying you're doing. And you might just also find that maybe you're just not as passionate about the thing as you thought you were. And that's also okay. It's good to discover that. And maybe there might be something that you want to spend more time. So it's really, I think it's kind of important to ask yourself, if you're not following through on your commitment, why not? And what can you do to potentially change that? But in general, I do think that if you've made a plan, you're far more likely to keep it in your diary. If it's there, the chances are that you're far more likely not to make excuses for it yourself. Okay. So kind of in summary, if I kind of put this all down, it's all about writing down the big goals that you really want, breaking them down into 90-day goals, breaking that down even further into as many small chunks as you can, and then putting all those things into your calendar. And you can really think about it as almost like making sure that you are, like, you almost can't fail. If you break it down into enough steps, you're making your success inevitable in a way. If you think about it, if you have your big goal and you want to make sure that you really get there, you kind of go all the way in on it. So if for instance if I had, I'm trying to think of like a useful example. If I had a course that I was doing and I wanted to sell 10 spaces, now if I only emailed 10 people about it, then the chances are it probably wouldn't fill up. But if I emailed 1,000 people about it, the chances are I would fill those spaces. Or if I wanted to have 50 gigs next year and I only emailed 50 venues, again, I'm not going to meet my goal. But if I kind of really went over and above and made sure that I went as far as I could, then I increased my chances of meeting that goal. So it's about really kind of like making it as, if you break it down properly, you'll make it really inevitable that hopefully you will reach your goal if you just get all those things in the right order and keep doing them in time. Okay. Anyway, listen, I'm very aware it's already 5 o'clock, so let's open up for a question and answer. And you can either unmute yourself or just write questions in the chat. And hopefully it might, Mary wrote a good question. You mentioned something very important. How do you know when you're actually finished with something? I truly feel something is never done, but that might be an issue of truly having a measurable goal. Yeah, Mary, I think this is actually a really big question and a really big topic, because one of the things I hear a lot from learners is like, I'm really good at getting a piece to 80% finished, but I find it very hard to get it all the way finished. Okay, that's something I hear all the time. So I think one of the questions there is like, well, what are you using to define as finished? Do you define finished as I've played it one time absolutely perfectly and that's it? Do you mean finished as I could play it 10 times in a row perfectly and that's finished? Do you mean finished as I've made a recording of it and that's it done, or I performed it in public and that's it done? You've got to kind of really think about, first of all, what is your final goal with it that you want? And then related to that, I would again set yourself a time limit on it. I think that if you just kind of keep playing or keep practicing a piece and keep hoping at some point it will be finished, it's quite hard to ever actually give it that final last push that you get by finally. I would always encourage you either to perform something publicly or to make a recording or a video of it, even if that never sees the light of day to anybody else. Just for yourself, like, give yourself an end goal and say, like, this is the date on which I need this to be finished. And you might decide at that point, like, it might not be as far on as you wanted it to be, but if you've given yourself as much chance of getting it to there, maybe at that point it's okay to also just give that piece a rest for another 6 months and come back to it when your skills are a little bit higher, and you might be really pleasantly surprised as well. So yeah, I think just trying to be specific about it as and about what you mean by finished is a really important thing. Good. So you all have my email address. If you want to ask me about any of this, if you want to see my examples, I'll put this all up on the internet, and I'll maybe share some of the examples and some of the things I have. Anyone in my Patreon, there's a if you go back, if you search practice diary, in there's like a goal setting bit. There's like a year-long goals 3-month goals, weekly goals thing in there, so you can use that, and that's also on my website if anyone else wants. But yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you all about your goal setting. I really hope that you I'd love to keep me updated on them. Let me know how you get on with them. I hope that you can really accomplish things that you did not think that you would manage to do this year. But yeah, just be kind to yourself and make a plan for yourself and prioritize your own time is kind of the biggest thing. And if you do have questions, then just get in touch. So yeah, you all know where I am. If you want to work with me this year, I've got Patreon, I've got online classes, I do private lessons, there's workshops, there's all of that stuff. Get in touch anytime if I can be of any help with any of that. But yeah, please let me know how you get on with your goals, and really try and see where they get to. Elizabeth saying maybe a 90-day catch up on Zoom. Oh, maybe that would make you all commit to one thing. But yeah, even if you just choose one goal to take away with, and try and think about what you can do in the next 90 days, then hopefully that will help. Okay, good. Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.